Star Sea Conqueror, 10,000 times rewards, frigate destroys stars. Episode 31. The Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruiser is a true star destroyer. This made Qin Sheng feel excited. The stronger his strength, the more he will have a place in the future universe. Now, attacking an entire planet is no longer a problem. On the other hand, 1,000,000 technical values were spent. Avrilia has successfully converted the base's battleship production line and repair plant to the CV-300 class fast aircraft carrier. And the aircraft carrier that has been changed can be said to be unrecognizable. The original CV-3000 class aircraft carrier is a relatively small, fast aircraft carrier. The length is only 1,820 meters. Less than 2 kilometers long. After the modification, the length of this new aircraft carrier reached a terrifying length of 16 kilometers. It is 6 kilometers wide. 3 kilometers high. Only the computing power of the excellent level of Avrilia Quantum, supplemented by a large number of technical values, can be modified in a short period of time. Qin Sheng had to give this new aircraft carrier a new name. After pondering slightly, Qin Sheng named it Honggaozu-class support aircraft carrier. Blueprints for the Honggaozu-class support aircraft carriers show that 2 battlecruiser production and maintenance lines were installed inside. There are also 10 cruise production and maintenance lines. 30 driving production and maintenance lines. It can also produce/repair 2 battlecruisers, 10 cruisers, and 30 destroyers or frigates. If fully loaded, it can dock 2 Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruisers, 10 Qin Huang-class storm cruisers, 10 Hanwang-class general-purpose cruisers, and 90 Wuanjuan-class pulse heavy gun frigates. In addition to this, there is plenty of space for escort boats for carrying troops. It can also transport more than 150,000 troops. This is a real aircraft carrier. When Qin Sheng saw the data blueprint of this aircraft carrier, the jaws were already off. He knew that Avria's abilities were terrifying. But he didn't expect it to be so terrifying. Name: the Honggaozu class supports aircraft carriers. Inner armor: high-grade titanium alloy crystal-plated composite armor plate. Outer armor: pseudo-red dragon scale battleship enhanced armor plate. Energy armor: 3-level energy shield technology. Inner armor thickness: 30,000 millimeters. Outer armor thickness: 25,000 millimeters. Body length: 16 kilometers. Width: 6 kilometers. Height: 3 kilometers. Dead weight: 1.2 billion tons. Total armor value of the ship: 89 million. Energy value: 1.5 billion. Weapon platform: 70 Thor Type 240 millimeters fast proximity electromagnetic gun. Firepower against ships: 0. Anti-aircraft firepower: 840,000. Siege firepower: 0. Production/repair lines: 2 battlecruiser production lines, 10 cruiser production lines, 30 destroyer production lines. The battleship docking platform can carry 2 Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruisers, 10 Qin Huang-class storm cruisers, 10 Hanwang-class universal cruisers, 90 Wuanjuan-class pulse heavy gun frigates. Energy system: 50-pack large fusion curvature energy supply energy conversion system. Powertrain: 120 and 60,000 universal vector engine. Curvature engine: 20 primary curvature engines. Manufacturing demand: 1 billion tons of metal, 100 million tons of purple crystals, 100 million tons of heavy hydrogen. Take a closer look at the construction requirements of this Honggaozu-class support aircraft carrier. Qin Sheng inhaled a cool breath. This kind of giant ship, he can't build it now. Of course, this mothership also has shortcomings, that is, there is no firepower against the ship and siege. But what does the aircraft carrier want against the ship and the siege? When you were in the aircraft carrier, those hundreds of battleships were decorations? Qin Sheng had thought that the amount of resources he had was already very large. But it seems that the amount of his remaining resources is only 44 million tons of metal, 4 million tons of purple crystals, 440,000 tons of heavy hydrogen. It is enough to build 10 Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruisers. And now the amount of resources mined by Qin Sheng base every day? Metals: 5 million tons/day. Purple crystals: 500,000 tons/day. Heavy hydrogen: 50,000 tons/day. At the current rate, he would have to save 200 days. You have to take a planet quickly. The amount of resources available is simply not enough to support me to build such a huge warship. Qin Sheng made up his mind. He still has 7.46 million skill points left. Add the enhanced armor of the pseudo-red dragon scale battleship to the Wuanjun-class pulse heavy gun frigate. Ding dong, does it cost 500,000 technical points for instantaneous modification? Yes. The installation is complete. Wuanjuan-class pulsed heavy gun frigates to add double armor. Wuan Jun class pulsed heavy artillery frigate inner armor. Amethyst nano regenerated armor thickness 1,100 mm. Pseudo red dragon scale battleship enhanced armor 900 mm. 3-level energy shield system. Inner armor value 965,000. Outer armor value 240,000. Energy shield value 100 million. Now the technical value is left with 6,960,000. Qin Sheng also had 47,250 battleship universal assembly modules. Ability to assemble battleships in seconds. Qin Sheng still had 350 warships left in command. Start building a Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruiser, and use the battleship's universal construction module to build instantly. Consumed metals 4.2 million tons, purple crystals 1.1 million tons, heavy hydrogen energy 631,600 tons. Consuming battleship universal module 5,000. There are many more metal resources, but there are only 408,400 tons of heavy hydrogen energy left. Heavy hydrogen energy is not enough. Just the construction of a Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruiser, heavy hydrogen energy is not enough. Qin Sheng had to set aside at least 100,000 heavy hydrogen energy for the construction of planetary colony engineering ships. In addition, 100,000 tons of heavy hydrogen energy must be set aside for the energy consumption of the fleet. Curvature energy systems are very hydrogen intensive. Therefore, the heavy hydrogen that can be used to build battleships is only 200,000 tons. Resources. Qin Sheng's 100-fold increase could not act on energy output, which made him very angry. You can only wait until you upgrade yourself to a first-level civilization, and the 100-fold amplification system will also be upgraded accordingly. And what is 200,000 tons of heavy hydrogen enough? Forget it, build 3 Hanwha-class universal cruisers. 336,900 tons of metal, 2,200 tons of purple crystals, and 162,300 tons of heavy hydrogen are consumed. Consuming battleship universal construction module 5,100. At present, the remaining resources are 36,436,100 tons of metal, 3,019,800 tons of purple crystals, and 246,100 tons of heavy hydrogen energy. Episode 32. At present, there are 37,150 general construction modules left in the battleship. After consuming the resources of the response, next to the glass meteorite with a diameter of nearly 3 kilometers, the huge capital ship was produced in the spaceport. Continuous flashes of light. Countless blue rays folded against each other, forming the shape of a narrow battleship. These blue rays begin to materialize. Embodiment. A huge battleship of 4.7 kilometers long is assembled and docked in space. Along with this giant battleship appeared 3 2.1 kilometers long, slightly smaller warships. The predecessor of the Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruiser is the ST-59 class defensive battlecruiser. The original ST-59 class defensive battlecruiser was only 1.5 kilometers long. But the narrow and long hull makes the appearance of this battleship still very high. Although the Hongwu Emperor class defensive battlecruiser is 4.7 kilometers long, its appearance is basically not much different from the original ST-59. Bigger, more firepower. It's like an equal scale enlarged version. The Hongwu Emperor class defensive battlecruiser is 4.7 kilometers long, 783 m wide and 920 m high. The hull is narrow and long, and the appearance is quite high. Pictured in the lower right corner. Such a giant docked in space next to a glass meteorite, the overall length is much longer than a meteorite with a diameter of nearly 3 kilometers. The full load of personnel is close to 70,000 people. Now Qin Sheng's fleet had 14 warships. 1 Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruiser, 3 Hanwha-class general cruisers, 1 Qinhuang-class offensive cruiser, and 9 Wuanjuan-class pulse heavy gun frigates. This was the escort fleet of Qin Sheng's relocation base. The Hanwha-class general cruisers were fully loaded with up to 28,000 men. In addition, the Hongwu Emperor level needs nearly 70,000 people to carry people. Qin Sheng also had to build 154,000 new tactical humanoids Saint Heli elite maiden warriors etheric dragon maiden warriors from the population assembly plant. Let's build the planetary colony engineering ship first. The rest of the personnel, slowly built on the road. Qin Sheng pondered. To create a population, Qin Sheng did not have the method of building it all in an instant. His base is 0.3 light-years away from the target, the home planet of the Morandez civilization. With the current speed of Qin Sheng's fleet at 92% the speed of light, it had to go for 118 days. Although due to time expansion and other reasons, Qin Sheng's own feeling time within the fleet was only 46 days. But the outside world has been really 118 days. Qin Sheng ordered that he begin to build planetary colonization engineering ships. 12 million tons of metal resources, 1.2 million tons of purple crystal resources, and 10 tons of heavy hydrogen energy. Consume Battleship Universal Construction Module, 10,000. Planetary colonization engineering ship, built. Please evacuate all personnel from the base, and the entire base will begin packing soon. Under Qin Sheng's orders, all the personnel still inside the base began to evacuate, and all landed on the Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruiser. On the bridge, Qin Sheng looked at the meteorite with a diameter of nearly 3 kilometers and a crystal-clear surface. I saw a series of architectural creations such as various densely packed buildings above, metallization refineries, crystal synthesis plants, and heavy water electrolysis plants that began to change. It's like a sticker that was originally stretched out, but it's now being recycled and gathered. The scene is not an ordinary shock. The vast base, like a transformer, began to converge towards a central point. After a lot of mechanical tumbling, changing, assembling. In the end, one is 3 kilometers long, 1.5 kilometers wide, and 1 kilometer high. Like a large alloy cylinder, the battleship took off, left the surface of the meteorite, and appeared in space. It's going to be 118 days. Qin Sheng not only sighed, the speed of his battleship was still too slow. He also never got a higher level engine. Wait, I seem to have 5 galactic technology reward chests left unopened? Near the time of departure, Qin Sheng finally remembered that after he had completed the task of the etheric dragon clan, the system rewards itself with 5 chests. At that time, his focus was on the ruins technology rewards he immediately received. Completely ignored these 5 treasure chests. Now, open the box. Hopefully something good will come out. Qin Sheng prayed. Ding Dong is opening the Galaxy Technology Reward Chest. Congratulations on getting the Battleship Universal Build Module X500. 100x increase. You got the Battleship Universal Build Module X 50,000. Okay, not bad. Keep opening the box. Congratulations on getting the Resource Replenishment Reward. 1 million tons of metal, 100,000 tons of purple crystals, 10,000 tons of heavy hydrogen. 100x increase. Congratulations on getting 100 million tons of metal, 10 million tons of purple crystals, and 1 million tons of heavy hydrogen. Technology reward chest opens resources? Qin Sheng glanced at the reward with some suspicion. Forget it, keep opening the treasure chest. Congratulations on getting the resource replenishment reward. 1 million tons of metal, 100,000 tons of purple crystals, 10,000 tons of heavy hydrogen. 100x increase. Congratulations on getting 100 million tons of metal, 10 million tons of purple crystals, and 1 million tons of heavy hydrogen. Qin Sheng's face darkened. Is he just so non-chief? 2 consecutive resource rewards? No new technology at all? Keep on. Congratulations on the miniaturization of directional armor technology. 100x increase. Congratulations on the miniaturization of battleship technology. Battleship technology miniaturization. It can be miniaturized according to all the technologies on the existing battleship. This can be applied to small combat units such as individual armor, fighter escort boats, and land tanks. This is good. Qin Sheng's eyes lit up. Just to make up for the shortcomings of his land combat units. Qin Sheng's land combat unit consisted of only 1,000 men. Heavy firepower in land warfare is inadequate. This technology can make up for it. The last box left, what good things can you bring him? Be sure to drive a more advanced curvature engine. Qin Sheng cried out in his heart. Congratulations on getting. Qin Sheng held his breath. Battleship Universal Construction Module X500, 100x increase. Get the Battleship Universal Build Module X 50,000. Existing Battleship General Construction Module Reserves, 127,150. Grass. Qin Sheng spat out some kind of plant noun in his mouth. Episode 34. By the way, did he say anything about our warning? Agni asked again. Lord, he said. Thanks for the warning, but he's here for these things, the ally replied. Oh. I don't know if I'm alive or dead. The fire roared disdainfully. He admitted that the player had a battle patrol and had some strength. But no matter what, it is also a person. Weak force. The Fire Alliance wanted to be exclusive, but they couldn't. In fact, he was not the only one who was wandering around the planet. There are several other alliances. They all want to get some benefits from here. However, there are still operational defensive space stations on the periphery of the planet. On the outskirts of the planet, there are also more than a dozen player alliance fleets fighting in the heart. No one could enter, but at the same time they banded together to seal off the area. Nor will any other players be allowed to enter. After all, the periphery of the planet was the wreckage of the fleet of first-class civilizations. They fish casually, reverse research, and the benefits are great drops. While taunting Qin Sheng that he didn't know whether he was dead or alive, the fire in his heart also began to subdue this player. The direction he is heading, which alliance is responsible for the blockade? Fire asked again. They used to be the blockade area of our alliance, but now they are almost in the blockade area of the Wei Jin alliance. Wei Jinming? The fire burst out laughing. The Wei Jin alliance acted extremely arrogantly, before their allies were killed by other players, after changing the alliance lords. Instead of converging, it was worse than before, and the hostility was heavier. The fire burned in his heart. This player who broke into the blockade was obviously good in strength, but weak in strength. As long as he is besieged by a large number of fleets of the Wei Jin alliance, when he is about to be unable to support it. At that time, he will come to the rescue again. I'm sure I'll be able to get the gratitude of this player, thus joining them in the Fire Alliance. As for whether he would fight with Wei Jinming, Agni said he was not worried at all. He had already reached an agreement with several other alliances around him, and the Wei Jin alliance was acting too arrogantly, and sooner or later it was going to threaten everyone. So in the future they will unite to destroy the Wei Jin alliance. Now you can also easily subdue a player with good potential. Why not enjoy himself? Let's just sit and wait for him to break into the fleet blockade area of the Wei Jin alliance. This player's strength is very good, but unfortunately, the brain is a little bad. Agni laughed, but the brain is not very good, which means that it is convenient for me to control. Let's just wait and see the good drama first. Qin Sheng's fleet was advancing. Naturally, it alarmed the Wei Jin alliance fleet around this area. Who's that? Which allied fleet? Don't you know this is the blockade area of our Wei Jin alliance? It doesn't seem to be a fleet of other alliances, and I haven't seen the logo on his battleship. Ha, a man. And the battle patrol? What about war patrols? We're a lot of people. Destroy his fleet for me. Hundreds of Wei Jin alliance warships surrounded from all sides. They were imposing, with great hostility. However, at this moment, suddenly the fleet of the Wei Jin alliance received a warning message from their detector. Allies. There is a situation. The fleet within the planet suddenly came out. Wei Jinming's new alliance leader was stunned, when even he was shocked. What? Haven't the fleets on the planet been unmoved? How did it suddenly come out? Ally, what to do? Withdraw. Evacuate. We can't beat them. The originally imposing Wei Jin alliance fleet began to withdraw in an instant. Don't care about Qin Sheng. And the fiery fire that had the heart to watch the play also received a warning. Oh my god, the fleet within the planet is out. Let's withdraw too. The order was issued, and some players questioned, then the ally lord, do we still care about that player? He was talking about Qin Sheng. A fart. He rushed all the way forward, that is to send death. I don't want to accompany him to death. First withdraw 10 million kilometers is saying. Suddenly, the various allied fleets that had been circling the planet began to withdraw at the same time. Only Qin Sheng's fleet was left heading towards the planet, going up against the current. Naturally, the fleets of other alliances also noticed Qin Sheng. Doesn't this guy know that the fleet within the planet is moving? Is he still rushing forward? Just look for dead fools. It's a pity, those two battle patrols in his fleet, what a pity. The players of the alliance either mocked or sighed. But no one thought that Qin Sheng's fleet might be hostile to the fleet that came out of the planet. At the moment there were at least 400 more warships on the planet. They are all fleets controlled by sadistic believers. Although the combined fleet of many players from the surrounding alliances was more than 1,000, most of them were some expulsion guards. The combat effectiveness is far inferior to the 400 warships of the real first-class civilization. Even their thousands of warships had to run. You have a player with more than a dozen battleships, can you still turn the sky upside down? All players have this in mind. As the fleet ran, it did not forget to turn around and throw a detector. I wanted to see how the fleet of fearful believers destroyed Qin Sheng's fleet. By the way, probe the real firepower of a wave of terrorist fleets. Emperor, the terrible fleet inside the planet ahead has moved, about 400 ships, all of which are one large ship. A fleet of 400 cult-fearing warships, the worst of which was also a cruiser more than a kilometer long. These battleships are all good, but they are all contaminated with terrorism. It's a pity, after the destruction, we can't get new technology. But the wreckage of the battleship on the other side is a battleship that was destroyed without contamination, and studying it may lead to some new technology. Qin Sheng touched his chin, completely oblivious to the fleet of 400 large warships that feared the believers. With Qin Sheng's gradual approach, hundreds of defensive space stations operating in planetary orbits of various weapons have also been mobilized. All kinds of laser cannons, missile launch platforms, automatic weapons turrets, all turned the muzzle of the gun. The densely packed gunports of weapons pointed at Qin Sheng's fleet. Episode 35. Hundreds of planets in synchronous orbit to defend the space station, above the deployment of various weapons, tens of thousands. The defense of a civilization's home planet is quite terrifying. At least at this stage, no player alliance dares to challenge it. In fact, it is a second-level space city to which a civilization belongs. Now it's also a headache for players. Not to mention the 10-level planetary attached space defense city community. Ha 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 ha, brothers, someone's coming to die. Destroy all his battleships for me. The Morandez people inside the space station have completely changed their appearance. Originally they were plant species, but at the moment many Morons people were twisted and fleshy. Standing upright plants grow bloody flesh and blood, and they also give birth to horns, wings and other organs that do not belong to plants. Especially on the bodies of these monsters, each of them still has the heads of their own clans. The painting style is very strange and terrifying. At once, tens of thousands of stars above these orbital defense space station groups, all kinds of weapons began to fire. Thousands of blue laser cannons penetrated space. The rear was followed by electromagnetic shells of various calibers. There are also hundreds of thousands of missiles of various types dragging long tail flames. The scene is spectacular. Directly covered Qin Sheng's fleet completely. The refraction generated by the laser hit into the surrounding space, the explosion produced by the hit of the electromagnetic shell. The missile hits the flames of a high-temperature explosion that burns out. The resulting UA even covered hundreds of kilometers around. Light up this piece of space directly. All the players who had already evacuated took a breath of cool air. Terror. With this level of firepower coverage, one shot, their thousands of player warships are probably going to be gone. And now, the player who rushed past was tightly bound by more than a dozen battleships. Even if there was a battle patrol, I am afraid that it would be transformed into cosmic dust in an instant. At this moment, a laser suddenly flew in, directly hitting a frigate of the Wasian Alliance, which was 10 million kilometers away from the battlefield. The frigate was instantly pierced and then exploded. What's going on? The new leader of the Wasian Alliance was shocked. Report to the Allies. It seems to be a refracted laser beam, only this bundle. Hearing this, Zhenchong was relieved, which was good. He thought he was being targeted. It almost didn't scare him to pee his pants. But after only a few moments, he reacted. No, although the fleet of his own alliance is tens of millions of kilometers away, it is not in the direction of the targeting of the planetary defense weapons. Instead, it is on the diagonal right. How could there be a laser ray coming by mistake? Refraction? Zhenchong suddenly ordered, let the probe go all out to get close to the battlefield. I want to see clearly what is happening. Soon, the Wei Jinming probe was risking to get closer to the past. In order to see more clearly, the shock even ordered the probe to turn its back on the planet and look from the front of the space covered with explosive laser rays. Only to see the detector screen displayed. In the midst of the countless explosions of light, among the flames, suddenly a giant battleship with an energy shield covered with countless hexagonal shapes and combined to form a honeycomb form crashed into countless flames and dust. The flames produced by any explosion, the dust, as if it were flowing water, was knocked away by the energy shield 100 meters away from the surface of the battleship's body and flowed backwards. This giant ship just sailed out of it. As the giant battleship moved forward, the extremely close probes also shook violently. The tremor can even hear the terrifying vibration sound of the detector propagating. Countless laser beams hit the battleship, but all of them were resisted by the energy shield and refracted. Just such a laser beam that was refracted away hit the Wasian Alliance battleship tens of millions of kilometers away. The next moment, the giant battleship is constantly approaching the image of the probe, and everyone can only see the tip of its iceberg. As we got closer, the detector's picture shook violently, and then it went completely black. Was destroyed. What? This. What kind of battleship is this? The players were all shocked, and one by one, their eyes widened and their mouths opened wide. Feel the deepest shock of the giant ship's face just now. Only close enough to the picture can you feel its deep shock. The distance was too far before, and they could only identify it as a battlecruiser. But at this moment, they suddenly realized that this was a huge battleship with a length of 4.7 kilometers. It was nearly 5 times the size of their largest battleship. And in the face of that, tens of thousands of weapons attacking this battleship, safe and sound. It was only the surface of the energy shield that had changed. Who the hell is this man? Jin Chongtian roared loudly and unacceptably. Isn't it? Is he the emperor? At this time, the players of the Weijian Alliance said this sentence with fear on their faces and trembling. Emperor. Deep fear arose in the eyes of the shock. Frontal battlefield. Hongwu Emperor class defensive battlecruiser bridge. Qin Sheng looked at the planet in front of him and bowed his head slightly. He was satisfied with the test results. Just now, Qin Sheng deliberately did not launch an attack first, but waited for the other side to attack. It was to test the Hongwu Emperor level energy shield. After the attack just now, the energy shield of the Hongwu Emperor class defensive battlecruiser was only 5% off. Subsequently, in the abundant supply of heavy hydrogen energy, it quickly recovered and reached the full value of 100% again. The defense system of a planet was much stronger than the firepower of more than 1,000 Moran's warships that Qin Sheng had encountered before. And Qin Sheng was also very satisfied with this result. It is worthy of the energy shield technology of the third-level civilization. Rounding equals no defense, no blood. So now, after the test is completed, it is time for Qin Sheng to shoot. The first to attack was the bow railgun of the Hongwu Emperor class defensive battlecruiser. Even if it is to launch ordinary shells, 2,000 mm caliber, super-accelerated electromagnetic orbit. As soon as the huge power was launched, it instantly penetrated an entire planetary defense space station. Then crashed directly on the planet. A small crater appeared visible to the naked eye on the planet. But this is a small quaternion observed from space. If you enter the planet to investigate, you will find that this small crater is at least hundreds of kilometers in diameter. This is also the ordinary shell fired, which shatters when it hits the planet. If it is a shell with a higher intensity, it will directly crash through the shell of the planet and enter the upper mantle. Episode 36. Qin Sheng looked at the small crater that appeared on the surface of the planet Morandez. Constant thoughts in my heart. If he replaced the bow railgun of the Hongwu Emperor class with a red dragon scale shell, can it continuously penetrate the crust of this planet, the upper mantle, the mantle conversion belt, the lower mantle, the D layer, the planetary nucleus? Direct attack to the planet's core? The diameter of the planet Morandez, about 28,000 kilometers. It is nearly twice the diameter of the Earth. After all, the official name of the bow railgun of the Hongwu Emperor is the Star Cannon, not the Destroyer Cannon. The description only says that replacing it with a red dragon scale shell can penetrate the Earth's crust. Whether it can penetrate the various layers of this planet thousands of kilometers thick and directly attack the core of the planet, Qin Sheng couldn't feel it either. The Earth prevails. The core temperature of the Earth is as high as 5,000 degrees. The internal pressure is 3.5 million standard atmospheric pressures. 1 atmospheric pressure is equivalent to 1.0336 kilograms of pressure on an area of 1 square centimeter. And the core of Morandez, how can it be nearly 10,000 kilometers in diameter? It is not certain how high the internal temperature is, and the internal pressure is estimated to have tens of millions of atmospheres. This makes every object that enters the kernel. The surface is subject to millions of megapascals of pressure. A place the size of a fingernail, per square centimeter, is subjected to tens of thousands of tons of pressure. In the Earth Age, the hardest steel was the super steel developed by the Dragon Kingdom, which could withstand the pressure of 2,200 megapascals. And this super steel is also the most common warship manufacturing material for players and first-level civilization forces today. But can the hardness of the red dragon scale shell withstand the pressure of millions, maybe even nearly 10 million megapascals? Qin Sheng didn't know. Qin Sheng hadn't experimented, but he was inclined to be able to bear it. After all, the red dragon scale steel has less than 1/10,000th of the defensibility of the red dragon scales of the real ether dragon. But one thing is certain. An ordinary shell weighing 100 tons is accelerated to 5% of the speed of light by a 2,000 mm super electromagnetic acceleration. After being fired, hit the kinetic energy generated by the target. Enough to create a huge crater with a diameter of 300 kilometers. And that's just the kinetic energy shock. All these energies converge at one point, which is incomparably terrifying. Qin Sheng had the heart to experiment. But he still wanted the planet. What if it can really attack the core of the planet and cause the destruction of the planet? Even if it was to destroy a planet now, it would be the most beneficial to Qin Sheng, and it would be the easiest way to do it. Or burn glass. It is the high-energy plasma beam that washes the planet. And Qin Sheng, just ready to do this. Destroy a space station attached to the planetary defense space city and get the Chaos Destruction Voucher, 500, technical value, 500. 100x increase. Get the Chaos Destruction Voucher, 50,000. Technical value, 50,000. Plasma pulsed beams of light, one after another comet storm missiles were launched from Qin Sheng's fleet. Instantly swept through all the planetary defense space stations with a thunderous momentum. Even the 400 Chaos Believer warships that had just come out of the planet were destroyed. Countless explosions flickered on the outside of the planet. More spectacular. Destroy a space station attached to the planetary defense space city and get the Chaos Destruction Voucher, 500, technical value, 500. Destroy a space station attached to the planetary defense space city and get the Chaos Destruction Voucher, 500, technical value, 500. You destroy the cruiser of the Fear Cult, get the Chaos Destruction Voucher X10, and get the technical value X100. You destroy the battle cruiser of the Fear Cultists, get the Chaos Destruction Voucher X100, and get the skill value X200. 100x increase. A total of 6.3 million Chaos Destruction certificates were obtained. Total technical value, 10 million. At this moment, Qin Sheng also harvested a large number of Chaos Destruction credentials and technical values. 6.5 million Chaos Destruction vouchers to start with. Qin Sheng nodded with satisfaction. According to his observations, there are at least tens of millions of sadistic believers on the surface of the planet. These tens of millions of sadistic believers slaughtered nearly 10 billion morons on the planet. If you wash the surface of this planet, how many Chaos Destruction vouchers can I get? Now Qin Sheng's Chaos Destruction voucher reserves had reached 760,000. The technical value reserves also reached 16.96 million. And Qin Sheng remembered that what he had seen in the Judgment Holy See in his previous life, how much Chaos Destruction evidence was needed for the transformation technology of the 4th level civilization to completely transform a real planet into a star-level battleship. Billion? It seems like a billion. Qin Sheng looked at his 760,000 Chaos Destruction credentials, and it was still far away. You have to work harder. Work hard, come on, Daddy. Well, now let him come to a wave of planets to wash the ground. Under Qin Sheng's orders, and tens of millions of kilometers away, the onlookers were stunned and shocked. Qin Sheng's fleet came to a synchronous orbit located on the planet. At an altitude of about 40,000 kilometers from the surface of the planet Morandez. What does he want to do? A group of players looked at the screen inside the detector in horror. The surface of the planet Morandez. From outer space, the planet is still green. But if you enter the planet to probe, you will find that these greens are not plants. It's a lot of blood and corpses of the morons. These green blood, corpses and plants that were already green are mixed together. Observations from outer space show nothing wrong. It is still a realm of vitality and competition for all things. At this moment, tens of billions of morons had been slaughtered by tens of millions of Chaos Believers. The capital above the home planet of Morandez, the City of Life. Inside this huge city of 50 million people, the center is a 1,000 meters high skyscraper exterior. Hanging with the heads of countless morons. 10 billion green heads were cut off and piled up on top of this skyscraper. Piled up into a giant skull throne. Tens of millions of fearful believers are in the city, filled with hundreds of thousands of streets that crisscross each other. On the streets above the abandoned suspension cars, above every tall building around it. There are all fearful believers in the war, around this throne constantly bowing and cheering. They were holding a sacrifice. Sacrifices were made to the heads of tens of billions of people around the world in the Moran civilization. They want to summon chaos demons from the chaos. Episode 37, Blood, Dazzling Blood, Source of Life. Blood out, I fall, blood flows, I live, I stop, I die. Tens of millions of fearful believers gathered in the city and chanted the blood god's ode to the huge skull throne that was thousands of meters high. The obscure language of the Morandez themselves made the tens of millions of sadistic believers cry out loudly, as if some mountain was calling for a tsunami. With their constant chanting. Above the huge skull throne, which was thousands of meters high, a blood-colored light emerged. For a time, the wind was blowing. In the darkness, accompanied by the fierce wind, there seemed to be an endless roar. Endless blood poured out of the skull throne. The entire skull throne turned into a sea of corpses and blood at this moment. The wind howled, mixed with the sea of blood. Instantly overwhelmed the city. Tens of millions of sadomasochists shouted and cheered. Bathed in a sea of blood. And at this moment, above the skull throne, a huge blood-colored demonic shadow descended. It was a 100-meter-tall, blood-colored creature with 4 huge horns that extended from the top of its head to form an X-shaped rune. The rune is painted with a horizontal bar at the bottom, which together form a symbolized skull. This is the symbolic identity of phobia. This is a bloodthirsty demon with huge demonic wings on his back. The huge wings behind him stretched out, and their wingspan exceeded 200 meters. Dressed in blood-red armor, this bloodthirsty demon was holding a cold double-edged axe in his left hand. In his right hand he holds a huge chain with a warhammer attached to the top of the chain. Fear of Abuse and his followers are usually extremely fanatical and melee. Of course, they don't refuse to use ranged weapons. Even they use it well. Sadistic believers will not reject any effective weapon of murder. In general, however, they prefer melee combat, decapitating the heads of their enemies. Seeing the appearance of this bloodthirsty demon, tens of millions of sadistic believers roared even more feverishly. Along with the bloodthirsty demon, there is also a legion of terrestrials. Countless horned, decapitated bloodlettings with decapitation swords poured out of the sea of blood that covered the entire city. The ruby-red skin of the bloodletting is a color that can please their owner's fear of abuse. They have humanoid bodies, beastly faces, slender skulls with long horns, and pupilless eyes burning with anger. Bathed in blood, he roared up to the sky. Along with them in the sea of blood, there were countless huge, flesh and bloodhounds. Each flesh and bloodhound is more than 10 meters long, covered with scales far harder than steel, and wears a spike collar around its neck. It can effectively resist the attack of psionic energy. An elite bloodsmith riding a steel copper bull, the blood-crushing cavalry. Cloaked in blood-red armor, with cannons on its back, it has skull cannons full of sharp-toothed blood basins and large mouths. This giant cannon is a demon in itself. The cannon was powerful enough to destroy a battleship with one blow. This is an organized, land-threatening legion. Led by a bloodthirsty demon. Summoned from the chaos. Now, I come out of chaos, and I will bring endless fear and blood to this galaxy. The bloodthirsty demon roared and roared in the sky. As a strong warrior under the seat of fear, even the weakest of the bloodthirsty demons all possessed the terrifying power to single-handedly destroy a second-level civilization. Now, this bloodthirsty demon has arrived, and he will be the leader of these tens of millions of abusive believers. Conquer this galaxy first and bring endless killing. This bloodthirsty demon had just arrived and was just about to say something. Suddenly he sensed something, and with a sharp wave of his hand, a bloody hound rushed out in the midst of the sea of corpses and blood. Directly bitten by a sadistic believer who was cheering feverishly. It was brought to the huge skull throne. The 100-meter-high body of the bloodthirsty demon leapt down from the 1,000-meter-high throne. Angry blood-red eyes glared at the abusive believer and shouted, "You have the smell of a cunning man, treacherous, one of the 4 evil gods of chaos." As you can tell from the name, he is the best at using intrigue and trickery. And as a pure warrior, Fear of Abuse is the most disdainful of intrigue and trickery. In fact, Fear of Abuse not only looks down on the treacherous Qi, but also looks down on the other 2 evil gods. Dirt is lazy dirty fat, and sex abuse is pure bridesmaids. Only Fear of Abuse is pure masters. A hammer smashed the treacherous believer into a meat paste. Then the bloodthirsty demon roared in anger. Huge waves of sound were transmitted to the entire planet in waves. Almost all of this planet, with a diameter of more than 20,000 kilometers, was covered. The planet Morandez is in synchronous orbit. They actually summoned a bloodthirsty demon? Qin Sheng was overjoyed. He hadn't just watched the planet for the first time, just to see what they could summon. Now, there is a bloodthirsty demon and a legion of hundreds of thousands of people who are afraid of land. This made Qin Sheng happy. The number of chaos destruction vouchers that can be paid into the account is about to increase again. All Wu and Jun class pulse heavy gun frigates ready. The plasma pulse cannon is aimed at that city above the planet. Qin Sheng said this, the corners of his mouth drew a curve, and he said softly, "Let's give the surface of this planet a bath." At the sound of an order, the 9 Wuanjuan class pulse heavy gun frigates began to turn the main gun muzzle. In a synchronous orbit 40,000 kilometers away from the surface of the planet, it aimed at the city that had become a sea of blood. At this time, in the surface city, the bloodthirsty demon was roaring loudly, "Blood sacrifice blood god, skull sacrifice cranial constellation. Now. No one can stop our legion. Slaughter the galaxy, burn the galaxy. We are invincible to the existence of the galaxy. No one can stop us. Nothing." The bloodthirsty demon roared. Tens of millions of abusive believers, bloodlettings, roared together in fanaticism. However, at this moment, there seemed to be a light falling from the sky. This purple light was faster than the thunder, descending straight from the sky. It seems to be a purple Optimus Prime. As soon as the purple beam touched the ground, it instantly let go of the shackles. Countless surging and terrifying heat of the heat, accompanied by these untethered plasmas spreading violently towards the surroundings. In an instant, more than 100,000 fearful believers were connected to the surrounding city buildings, the sea of blood. Burn them together and turn them into fly ash. This is just the beginning. Successive purple beams of light fell from the sky. It's like a stream of high-pressure water washing away the dirt on the surface of the planet. Violent, hot plasma spreads, turning everything into powder. Episode 38. Covering the entire city, there were tens of millions of fearful believers and hundreds of thousands of army legions. Bloodshots, blood-crushing knights, fleshhounds, skull cannons, all in this torrent of purple plasma that fell from the sky like a heavenly curse. Turned into fly ash. And that masculine demon was even more concerned. He was roaring passionately when suddenly 3 plasma beams of light fell from the sky. Instantly overwhelmed him. The heat of up to hundreds of millions of degrees envelopes it in an instant. He let out a howl of pain. It is then submerged by a torrent of plasma. After the torrent, the whole city has been flattened. It is a real flat land. All the tall buildings, the abandoned, suspended vehicles, the streets, the fear of abusing believers. All gone. Only the ground that turned into crystal-clear glass at high temperatures remained. And above this large area of ground, a scarred behemoth dressed in rough air, painfully crouched on the glass floor. The ground reflected his burn-scarred body. I'm going. Didn't die? On the planetary synchronous orbit, Qin Sheng in the flagship bridge widened his eyes somewhat unexpectedly. This plasma torrent spreads, but it will instantly release hundreds of millions of degrees of heat. Didn't even kill this bloodthirsty demon directly? Instead, it was severely burned. Moreover, Qin Sheng also noticed that on the screen displayed in front of him, the surface of the bloodthirsty demon was rapidly recovering. This masochistic demon was still seriously injured. Looking at this recovery speed, after about 2 hours, it will be restored as before. Blanched, it is worthy of being an elite and powerful warrior under the command of the Chaos Evil God. The front was hard to resist the impact of the plasma torrent of the previous generation of high temperatures, and it did not die. Look at it this way, even if this bloodthirsty demon stands on the star, he will be safe and sound. Qin Sheng was amazed. In his previous life, he had been fighting against ordinary chaos armies, and he had never really fought a bloodthirsty demon. Now look at it, the bloodthirsty demon is indeed terrifying. However, no matter how powerful it was, when he encountered Qin Sheng at this moment, it was considered that his road was narrow. Hongwu Emperor, the bow railgun ordinary shell preparation. Qin Sheng gave the order directly. The impact caused by live fire can be different from energy attacks. Now Qin Sheng first tested him with ordinary cannonballs. The Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruisers began to adjust their angles. Located above the planet's synchronic orbit. The bow railgun aimed at the bloodthirsty demon located on the surface of the planet, hundreds of meters high. Ordinary shells with a diameter of 2 meters and a weight of 100 tons began to accelerate in electromagnetic orbit. The next moment. The bow railgun 2000 mm caliber muzzle, the azure arc constantly jumped underneath. A flash of light. 100 tons of shells came out of the chamber in an instant. Instantly piercing through the planet's atmosphere, in an instant, a terrifying speed of up to 5% of the speed of light will rub all the air currents in the atmosphere along the way. The high-temperature flames produced by friction enveloped the shells. It was like a red streamer falling from the sky and flashing by. Boom. Inside the atmosphere, on the surface of the planet, there was a loud noise. Ringing through the air. A loud noise seemed to be able to spread across the planet. The impact of the strong kinetic energy carried by the shell alone. A mushroom cloud rose 100 kilometers high. The Earth shattered. A huge crater with a diameter of more than 300 kilometers appeared on the surface of the planet. The impact that extended out almost destroyed all the buildings on the surface of the planet, within a radius of thousands of kilometers. Rising dust covered the planet's atmosphere. It's been going on for a long time. Qin Sheng launched a plasma torrent here, actively incinerated, and dispersed the dust in that area. Only then was it possible to see the situation. The bloodthirsty demon was covered in blood, and 2 of the 4 demon horns on his head were broken. The wings with a wingspan of more than 200 meters on the back were broken. Flesh and blood turned outward, not in human form. But still not dead. Because the strength of ordinary shells is insufficient. Although it carries a huge impact, it hits the moment of this bloodthirsty demon. The 100-ton shell also turned into fragments in an instant. So it didn't really kill the bloodthirsty demon. So hard? Qin Sheng's eyes flashed a look of surprise. So now, you can only replace it with a more powerful dragon-scale shell. To tell the truth, Qin Sheng was also a little hesitant. Because he didn't know the true power of the dragon-scale shell. If the power is too great, directly hit the center of the Earth, and the planet will disappear if you are not careful. Deep in giant craters. The bloodthirsty demon suffered 2 such heavy attacks in a row, though his life was in danger. But as long as you don't die, with its powerful recovery ability, you can recover in less than 2 hours. Ha 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 ha. His thick voice laughed. Slightly weak. Is that all you can do? Can you push harder? I think you're A. As long as I recover, then I will slaughter this galaxy. At that time, whether you have hundreds of billions or trillions of people, I alone will be enough to slaughter them all. The bloodthirsty demon was still roaring in the sky with an incomparably iron head. Well, satisfy you? Qin Sheng didn't think about it. Let's destroy him. Red Dragon Scales bomb ready. Tens of millions of kilometers away, the players who were constantly looking out saw Qin Sheng's fleet preparing to fire another shot. The eyes of each frightened one widened. One shot is not enough, and we are ready to shoot another shot. This Emperor is indeed fierce. God, I think we should never provoke the Emperor. Suddenly, all the players felt the brutality of the legendary Emperor. There are no more living people on this planet, and the surface of the Earth must be washed again with cannonballs. Brutal, too brutal. In the giant pit, the bloodthirsty demon was calculating in his heart, waiting for his recovery. Where to start killing this galaxy? Kill all the way from top to bottom, and then from bottom to left. Still from bottom to top, then from top to right. For a moment, the bloodthirsty demon felt trouble. If it is a planet, it is all flat, but the universe and space are no matter which direction, in all directions, up and down, left and right, all can go. And that's right here. Suddenly, a grain of light, a shining object fell from the sky in an instant. Although the speed of that particle of light is as high as 5% of the speed of light. But he was still able to see it. It was 2 meters in diameter, 3 meters long, and weighed thousands of tons. The surface of the body seems to be covered with a cylindrical shell like a red dragon scale. In an instant, the bloodthirsty demon sensed danger. He wanted to move and escape. But he was badly injured and could not move. If he had been intact, he would have fled at twice the speed of light. Qin Sheng could see directly with the naked eye on the planet's synchronous orbit. Mushroom clouds of up to thousands of kilometers have risen from the surface of the planet. The impact of the powerful terror almost spread to this planet with a diameter of more than 20,000 kilometers around the world. Above the entire surface of the planet, almost all the cities and buildings of the original Morandez civilization were destroyed by the rapid impact of the spread. Episode 39. The Earth's plates shattered, and countless magma poured out of the ground. Endless gray dust spread, covering the surface of the planet's body with a diameter of more than 20,000 kilometers, and the entire atmosphere. The originally green planet Morandez has now completely changed, becoming a planet with gray dust everywhere. There are even huge volumes of land plates that have been directly lifted off and floated in the space of the universe. Observing in outer space, the entire planet has not only turned gray. It's no longer even a full circle. It's like being bitten. Even Qin Sheng's fleet docked in the planetary synchronous orbit was affected. If it weren't for the fact that Qin Sheng's fleet had an energy shield and its own strength was too high. It is estimated that if you change to an ordinary fleet, you will be directly destroyed by the huge amount of land fragments erupting into space on the planet. That is to say, Qin Sheng's fleet could be intact. However, the value of the energy shield decreased a little, but it was quickly restored. Several plasma beams shoot down from the sky. Brushing aside the long clouds and endless gray dust, the planet saw the sun again. It can be seen that a terrifying crater with a diameter of more than 3,000 kilometers has appeared on the surface. The hole is funnel-shaped, and the further down, the smaller the diameter. But it's getting deeper. Qin Sheng probed for a moment and felt that the dragon scale shell did not seem to hit the core of the planet. But I can't see exactly where I hit it. Because the huge crater with a diameter of more than 3,000 kilometers was already full of scorching magma. The surface of the planet is littered with erupting lava. Even the oceans have evaporated. The land cover of the planet is much more than before. In general, this planet is no longer suitable for ordinary creatures such as humans to survive. Except for the Morans on the planet, who had long been slaughtered by the fear of abuse, the rest of the ordinary animals that had escaped the disaster at the hands of the fear of the abuse believers. The creatures of the rest of the species were also hit by the Hongwu Emperor-class defensive battlecruiser. Extinction. The impact on this planet is probably no less than the extinction of dinosaurs in the age of the Earth. Has turned into a Death Star. And what about the fear of the devil? Those who are already dead cannot die anymore. The corpses were reduced to powder and disappeared. Qin Sheng saw that this planet, which was originally beautiful and green, had turned into a grey Death Star. There was some emotion in my heart. Alas. He was good. I can't see this kind of scene that destroys the world and destroys the Earth and destroys the lives. Ding dong, congratulations on forming an army of phobias and getting the Chaos Destruction Voucher X 10,000. Ding dong, congratulations on successfully destroying a bloodthirsty demon and obtaining the Chaos Destruction Voucher X 10,000. Ding dong, congratulations on successfully clearing a planet contaminated with chaos, killing all the sadistic believers, and obtaining the Chaos Destruction Voucher X 40,000. 100x increase. Congratulations on getting the Chaos Destruction Voucher 6 million. Good. Qin Sheng was excited. Coupled with the Chaos Destruction Voucher obtained this time, his storage number finally exceeded the 10 million mark. It reached 13.66 million. But looking back, after the excitement, Qin Sheng looked at the planet again. What a loss of life. Qin Sheng felt a little guilty in his heart. Although this planet is no longer beautiful, it is full of greenery. Not suitable for ordinary human survival. However, Qin Sheng found that after such an explosion, the planet plate shattered. The whole planet is no longer a complete circle. This exposes the huge amount of mineral deposits stored under the planet. It's easier to mine. Good, good. After discovering this, Qin Sheng even lost the guilt of that pinch. Conscience? Can I eat it? Mines are the most realistic. Qin Sheng then ordered the fleet to begin to perform artificial cooling work. After all, the surface of the planet is full of magma. If you wait for these exposed magma to cool naturally, you don't know how long it will take. But there is no need to cool the entire surface of the planet. Just cool down near the area selected by Qin Sheng. As for other places, wait for natural cooling. After this battle, Qin Sheng understood. The power of the dragon scale shell was not enough to penetrate the 20,000 kilometer diameter planet. However, the impact of the power caused by it is similar to that of the extinction of the star. Because of the impact caused the continental plate of the planet to fragment, all species went extinct. Qin Sheng's fleet began to officially enter the planet. The 4.7 kilometer long giant warship was the first to break through the atmosphere filled with sulfide, obscuring the sky and not seeing the sun. Land slowly. After the players who were tens of millions of kilometers away from the planet saw Qin Sheng's fleet begin to land on the planet, they all swallowed their saliva. Several players within the league saw the scene of the terrifying scene just now. They all looked at the chat channels within their leagues and couldn't speak for a long time. After a long time, finally someone spoke up. At #Yuan. Yuan %% at. However, the shaking of the hand, coupled with the fact that it was still in the midst of a huge shock, typed a line of garbled code. To show shock. Finally, a player spoke, and up came the sentence, sleeper, sleeper. Yeah, sleeper. However, it was as if they had lost their words, and hundreds of players would speak these words. Is this the big guy? Is this the big guy who destroys the stars? May I ask the Emperor, are you still human? Withdraw. Let's withdraw. The first reaction of the Weijian Alliance's main shock was extreme fear. Before, they had allied to the Emperor. Don't run now, wait for the Emperor to come and kill them all? And other players react almost the same way. It seemed that in their hearts, Qin Sheng had become an existence that was countless times more terrifying than the Chaos Demon. It has become a Death Star on the planet Morandez. Qin Sheng's fleet began to sprinkle liquid nitrogen in large quantities in the established area. As a result, this high-temperature area began to cool rapidly. After you're done. The fleet officially landed. After clearing out a flat area, the planetary colony engineering ship is fully docked and begins to unfold, extending the base. Qin Sheng officially occupied this planet that had changed from a living planet to a mineral planet. The system prompts. Ding dong, you managed to occupy a planet. Your civilization level has been officially raised to level 1. Officially becoming a first-class civilization means that you have officially entered the big stage of the universe. Please officially create your civilization and give it a proper name. Episode 40, Ding Dong, Full Service Announcement. The human player Emperor has successfully upgraded to a first-class civilization and created a civilization power, the Great Qin Empire. Of all players, complete the first creator achievement. Get rewards, Level 2 Civilization Primary Migration Engine Technology, automatically upgrade to Extraordinary Commander, get Galaxy Technology Reward Chest X10. Due to the emergence of a first-level civilization force among players, the list of player civilization forces in each major star system is opened at the same time. Galactic Player Civilization Forces Leaderboard. Number 1, the Great Qin Empire, First-Class Civilization, Founder, the Emperor. Number 2, Kyushu Consortium, Level 0.7 Civilization, Founders, Bactrian Alliance, Jinhua Alliance, Yanhuang Alliance. Number 3, Milica Lighthouse Consortium, Level 0.7 Civilization, created by Divine Angel Alliance, Galactic Lighthouse Alliance, K Alliance. Number 4, Fengwolf Jushu Consortium, Level 0.7 Civilization, Founders, Great Han League, Datong Alliance, Daming Alliance. Number 5, Great Rising Sun Consortium, Level 0.7 Civilization, created by Rising Sun Alliance, Sun Flag Alliance, Yamato Alliance. Number 100, Korean Cosmic Consortium, Level 0.7 Civilization, created by Great Cosmic Alliance, Taiji Banner Alliance, Korean Alliance. There are currently only 100 players on the list whose combined forces can make the list. Ranking first was the civilization force created by Qin Sheng. Great Qin Empire. The Star Sea game stipulates that below the first level of civilization, a force formed by the alliance of several players. It cannot be called a state. It can only be called a consortium. Only a first-level civilization or above can be called a country. This announcement is out. Players all over the galaxy have mixed reactions. The Dragon Kingdom players first fried the pot en masse. Sleeper. The Emperor Gangster has been promoted to a first-level civilization. The Emperor alone created a first-class civilization? Awesome. Awesome. On the new leaderboard, the Emperor Big Man alone ranks first. Horrible. Emperor. The combined forces of our Dragon Kingdom's player alliance occupy 37 ranking positions in the list. Which galaxy is the power of the Kyushu Federation, the second in line, and it also gives us dragon people a long face. The Dragon Kingdom players collectively fried the pot, and for a time, the galactic public screen was full of words discussing this list. The third-ranked Lighthouse player has not yet come out to speak. The Little Day Country player jumped out. By what? Why is our Great Rising Sun only ranked 5th? However, before the Small Day National players brushed the screen, the players of the Stick Country who reacted more fiercely there directly took the lead in brushing the screen. It's like directly pressing the players of the Little Day Country. Impossible. Our Korean baseball country is a big country, with a splendid history of 5,000 years. We are such a good country, how can we be at the bottom? Why do you Dragon Kingdom players occupy so many positions? In the ancient times on Earth, the territory of the Dragon Kingdom north of the Yangtze River was our big stick country. On history, our 5,000-year-old great country. On culture, your Dragon Kingdom Hanfu has copied our Hanfu, and on the military, even the troops of the Beacon country have rushed to garrison our land to protect us. In history, even Li Shimin, the emperor of the Dragon Kingdom for thousands of years, was blinded by us. Why do you Dragon Kingdom compare to us? It's not fair, this list must be unfair. We are so strong. It is impossible to rank at the end. The stick people who occupy a small number of player groups seem to be crazy, brushing the screen one after another, spraying people. For a time, with the amazing troll combat power, it was stunned to temporarily suppress the remarks of players in other countries. The players were all stunned. Stick this is, eat gun medicine? How did you suddenly start to go crazy? Which line is wrong, why is it so crazy? The stick is the nerve that carries itself most deep inside. In the age of the Earth, the stick was not right. It has survived in the shadow of the Dragon Kingdom in the past, and later in modern times. It can be said that it can be said to be up. But there are also lighthouse countries that suppress them. Sticks have always been the most inferior, but this inferiority has gone through all kinds of self-distorting history and self-brainwashing propaganda at the time of the Earth. Evolved into a mad dog-like brainless self-confidence. In the age of the Earth, with the help of the lighthouse country, they can still rank among the top 200 countries on the Earth. They can barely hold up their pitiful self-esteem. But in the Star Sea game, the list of 100 player forces, they are at the bottom, and there is a danger of being surpassed by other player forces at any time. In an instant, the poor, self-esteem built on extreme inferiority broke in an instant. So like a mad dog, he began to verbally attack the Dragon Kingdom players. But, the Stick Nation players are crazy. There are also some players who are angry. It is the third Lighthouse player. The many Lighthouse Nation player alliances of the Milica Lighthouse Consortium. Before Qin Sheng achieved the first achievement, they were gathering all their strength. Attack a space city of a first-class civilization in their galaxy. That space city is a 6th-level space city. Previously, the Lighthouse players had received information that as long as they attacked this 6th-level city, they would also get an achievement. Galactic Region Manager. And if this achievement can be completed first, there is a high probability that there will be a systematic announcement. Then they Lighthouse players can crush the Dragon Nation players. However, they never expected that the Emperor would still crush them and complete a more cattle and stronger founder achievement. He is the first star player in the universe to capture a planet and upgrade to a first-level civilization. Just one player has overwhelmed several alliances of their consortium and thousands of players. How can this always proud Lighthouse players stand up to it? In fact, the players in the previous stick country were so crazy that they began to verbally attack the Dragon country players. There is also the backing of the Milica Lighthouse Consortium. The Milica Lighthouse Consortium, ranked 3rd on the list, and the 100th Korean Cosmic Consortium are in the same planetary system. Let the brain-dead sticks be dogs in front of them, verbally attacking the Dragon Kingdom players and the Emperor. Let's take a moment to relieve this evil breath in their hearts. Anyway, even if there is a disadvantage, even if the Emperor opened the bounty as the last time, it was still the brain-dead sticks to top. What's the matter with them? Could it be that the Emperor could still know that they were behind it? Then directly across an unknown number of light years, directly to them beat them galaxy is not? Don't kid yourself, the Emperor is strong, but he can't be so powerful.